This podcast is sponsored by CDO Group, the industry leader providing a full range of construction and project management services. CDO Group has managed thousands of projects in all 50 states. Their group of experts provides systems, processes, and procedures to make sure that your projects turn over on time and on budget every single time. With over 24 years of experience, CDO Group is the industry's leader in construction management and general contracting services. To find them, go to cdogroup.com. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. My name's Anthony Amunategui, and I'm here to inspire people to find amazing careers in the construction development world. If you like our podcast, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really like our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Welcome to the Future of Development podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Amunategui, and today I've got Dell'Omo with WorkerSense, really giving you insight on product production, health and safety, and data demographics of your job sites. You're going to love this. Stick around. Welcome to the show. Excited about having you on today. I hear that you're from Duke University and you've created some cool products, and I want to get into all of that today.
It's very true. Thank you for having me. I started a wearable technology company out of my dorm room sophomore year, which is, I don't know, I hear that's highly recommended. I always have had a passion for technology and its usage to particularly, understand the human body, the human experience, without necessarily a construction background, kind of made my way over there. I've learned so much about construction and neighboring verticals, and very luckily I've been having a lot of success with what we built out.
Before I get into all that cool stuff, and I really we're going to get into that really in depth. How did you start to come up with this idea? Where did let's go a little bit back more on Candy. Where did your path to getting here?
So I started studying. It's a major called biomedical engineering. I'm going to abbreviate that as BME for the sake of brevity here. Started studying BME, which is obviously a combination of understanding biosciences with also understanding engineering and development on that front, which I like I said have a huge passion for. But what I guess may not be super surprising is that it's a pretty dry curriculum for the first couple of years, and then kind of later on, maybe third or fourth year in your undergraduate, you get nitty gritty and hands on with the engineering side of things. And that didn't really work for me. I feel like I always had kind of random ideas for little hardware development opportunities, little gadgets that I would think about and say, hey, this would be cool to make. And so I just started. There's this group on campus that was funded by Duke called the Innovation Collab, and they had a little maker space with 3D printers, fabrication tools and whatnot, things to solder, do electrical prototyping. But they also gave out just small, no strings attached grants, and so I'd just be pitching them on whatever kind of came to mind, and finally got one, which was this little wrist wearable with interchangeable sensors that I ended up prototyping.
Wait, hold on. So was this every Friday night before you went out drinking? You pitch them a new idea? Is this?
Yeah, just to get it out of the way.
So you get some beer money, or was this hey, sorry, I didn't get much done. No. How did that? So you pitch them the idea. How does that? And now you start your first wearable. So talk about that one again. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, I learned about. I don't know how deep into actual hardware development we want to get, but there's. I learned about it's called I2C protocol, which is how little digital sensors talk to a microcontroller, and it's super simple. And so I saw that and thought it'd be great to have kind of interchangeable sensors that you could clip in, clip off depending on what you need the wearable to track. You can just swap that around, and maybe I wanted to track temperature and humidity today. Maybe I wanted to track my motion tomorrow, and I thought that was a super interesting concept. And I guess they thought it was mildly interesting, I guess. And so I think that netted a $500 grant, nothing crazy. And so ended up prototyping that, and it worked. It worked well, and it pointed me towards particularly industrial HSE applications, which is really weird to go from that to that abruptly, but. Rooted in not a lot of interest in consumer applications, and a lot of the sensors that I was fooling around with were health and safety related. And if you kind of just take a second to think about where we struggle with health and safety, you go towards these more industrial arenas where you have construction and manufacturing that see crazy rates of fatal and non-fatal injuries. And it's like, hey, let's see if I can do something to actively address that. So I mean, that's where things kind of started, and then went down the rabbit hole of construction in particular.
I think that's underestimated, right? The value of just getting started, right? The stepping into it. And this is something that I want us to really communicate well to. I want that young entrepreneur that's sitting in his dorm room or her dorm room and has an idea, right? This is probably the most magical thing about being a creator is that the hardest part is getting from sitting on your couch with the idea or sitting in your chair with the idea and actually taking the first step, right? You're not going to get the whole thing figured out. But you have to step and try something, right? And maybe figure out a part of it, a component of it. You get in the field of understanding, like you did here. You started to understand the modules that were later on going to, create the product you have today, right? The wearables that you have today would not have got started had you not taken that first step and gone in that innovation lab, right? And you start there, and that really is the inspiration I hope that people will pick up. Every single person that I talk to, every single one of them has that exact same thing. They had an inspiration. They took a step. It didn't get solved. In fact, a lot of them have ups and downs and failures, right? You take a step and you figure, but in every one of those things, if you can fail falling forward, right? And you kind of figure out at least a part of it, the next time you start up, the next thing you move forward seems to go a little bit better, a little bit further. It may not get the whole way, but you now have, and I've certainly looked at all the companies that I've built throughout my life, from the car polishing, car detailing businesses I did as a kid, or the painting companies I had as my first construction companies. Really, as I look back at all of those, they were the steps that really created what I get to have today, right? All the great companies, all the great business that we get to run around the world. It's all happening because of those small ups and downs of failures and trying. The blood, sweat, and tears really forced me to get a little bit smarter about the next thing that I did. And you bring those into that, right? So now you get into you're at Duke, you're in your dorm room, you started tinkering with a couple of wearables, and where'd you go from there?
Well, I mean, just touching on the previous thing you said, I do want to underscore that. I think, especially in a college setting, I just generally think in life, like the earlier you can fail, the better. Obviously, if you right now today mess something up royally, the consequences of that would be significantly higher than 19-year-old Canyon sophomore year. You mess something up, guess what? You're still a college student doing what you were there to do. And so I think, when it comes to building something like this, and when people ask me, like, how did you come up with this? It's not like a single aha moment. Like, I know that happens for people, but it's very much this iterative journey that, I feel very strongly about, because I think that, repetitive failure, if you will, that it cultivates this very strong sense of trust in yourself long term, where you just collect such a strong, dense data set of things you've done and how it played out. And so now I feel like when I go to make a decision, I just have a lot more confidence in what that is and confidence in myself making that. And it was always funny to me, like, being in kind of the entrepreneurial side of Duke and having a lot of advisory resources to talk to. And I think you can get caught up as a young entrepreneur asking almost too many questions, and instead of just doing. And the reason on our first call, when I was like, oh, how do you know Howard? So Howard Lerman, who's the founder and CEO of Yext, started it also at Duke undergraduate, now public company, doing amazing. And I had met him a couple times, talked to him through like our entrepreneurship events, and it's still like my favorite piece of advice I've ever gotten, because I think like after the second time we had a conversation, like I sent him an email with literally like 10 or 15 questions, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like about everything that I was doing. And the guy replies with 6 words. And I still don't know if it's just him not wanting to talk to me or if he genuinely thought this was the best advice, but he just said, it's your company, my founder friend. And that was a very transformative moment for me that, just kind of compounded on all of the successes and failures that, I was having on a daily basis. It's that, this is, at the end of the day, you're at the helm of this. No one really knows how entrepreneurship, optimally works. You look at, even like big VCs, for instance, that, you get a big VC partner that goes and sits on a panel, but like at the end of the day, VCs work because, a few of their bets take off and the rest feel like no one knows what's going on. And so I just, not to be too redundant, but I just think the earlier you can get started, the earlier you can start to find kind of your own path and what you want to do. I think that's super, super productive.
And really, I say to you that not knowing what to do is the magic, right?
Yeah.
As soon as, like at my age, where I'm at in business, I know too much. And honestly, it becomes, you start to play defensively, right? You start to play, all right, I don't want to lose what I've gained, right? And instead of where you're at right now, it's not knowing you can't do something, or not knowing the competitors are out there doing something similar, because all it takes to beat the competitors, you guys could be on the same exact track, building the exact same product, but you make a right instead of their left, and at the exact right moment, and not knowing that you couldn't do that was the differentiating factor that becomes a 10 times multiple, right? It becomes the item that really starts to look at it and go, that was it. And had I sat there and watched what they were doing the entire time, I would have mimicked what they were doing, and not knowing that, really standing out and going, look, I see a problem. And here's how I'm going to try to solve that problem in your own way, right? Not having all the systems put together really is the genius behind the whole game. And I think that's why we're built the way we are. We're built to really continue to not just keep do the same thing over and over again. Although I see people do that, especially as they get older, and it becomes very repetitive, and their creative side shuts down. Right, while and they go in the defense mode, like I have in some respects. Now I challenge myself every day to go through that and go, stop that, take another step. Turn on. This last couple of months has really challenged. COVID was a great time for me to go out and do that. And young entrepreneurs, you don't have that risk. You're in a dorm room. Like, I love what you said. I have nothing to lose. Go for it. Try 10 different ideas. Go for 100 different ideas. And one of them will go, but you'll learn through every single part of that, which that's the magic. That's the gold right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Henry Ford quote. I'm looking for men who have an infinite capacity to not know what can't be done. I think that's extremely powerful. And I think there's an arrogance to it. Don't get me wrong. As far as, being someone that, take me, for instance, a 19-year-old that's never set foot on a construction site saying, hey, I'm going to wake up today and change the construction industry. Like that's arrogant, but it's also, it's freeing in a sense. And it's exciting.
Well, and there, what I should know and what I'm supposed to, no, look, but being in that whiteboard, it's a whiteboard, right? You have complete, now you go out there and you start creating products. And you'll go up against some resistance, and you're going to go through some of that, and some of that learning will come. But having the whiteboard to create without the knowing I have to do it this way really does open up having infinite ideas that are brought to the table, right? And ultimately, great leadership is about solving problems where an answer didn't exist, right? Great leadership is solving and really bringing all the possibilities of the world to an idea, to a solution, where a solution didn't exist before. And that's, to me, the innovative, the creator, the great leadership that people are looking for. Look, managers do what they're supposed to do, right? There's a system in place, and they keep doing that, and they just try to refine doing that well. Great leadership in an idea or breakthrough ideas take finding a problem and solving it where there wasn't an idea before, and now I start to really exploit that. And I think that's a genius of not knowing. It's in that spot right there. So now you get into you start doing some of these small projects, and you get into, where do you get your first wearable product to market? How do you get it to the field? Where's the first place to go to do that?
So I mean, obviously would continue to, iterate on it in a controlled environment. I figured out the door code to one of the electrical engineering labs, went through a lot of prototypes on that front. Yeah, believe it or not, you can take the class, get the door code, and then drop the class. So if anyone out there needs a pro tip on that front. But so, went through a couple kind of in-house prototypes like that. And then, it's like, all right, this is starting to materialize. I need to actually get this on a construction site, see how it behaves, go from there. That's the next logical step. And so Duke was doing a lot of, Duke Duke's always doing a lot of construction on campus. So, I'm like, yeah, maybe I can kind of shoehorn my way into one of these projects. And I actually happened to find a Duke alum who was a project manager at Gilbane, who was running it was the health and wellness center that they were building, like actually right next to my dorm, which was kind of funny. And so I reached out to her on LinkedIn and was like, hey, this is probably kind of random, but I'm making these little sensors, interested in construction applications, would love to, test a few out on your job site. And she said yes. If she didn't, who knows where WorkerSense would be. So shout out to her. But the caveat was, she's basically just gave me permission to do that. No assistance there. Just, hey, you can have access to the job site. We're not going to mandate this. We're not going to, tell people to wear it. Like, you can just give these out. And if people say no, they say no. And so I'm like, all right, I'll take that challenge. I think it was like 30 sensors that I hand soldered in my dorm room. Funny story on that. Gilbane wanted, I don't even know why I asked them, because I got all of the like plastic enclosures 3D printed, and they're just in like standard white plastic filament. And I don't know why at the time I replied just like super amped up about this opportunity. I'm just like, what color do you want the sensors? And they're like, how about red? And I'm like, oh, okay. I just printed all of these in white. So I spray painted all of these in this underground like maker space called the Foundry on campus. And I didn't realize that in the process of spray painting all 30 of these sensors, I had dusted the entire like 5,000 square foot space in very fine red spray paint dust. This like multi-million-dollar facility that like, I got a very frustrated email from the manager of that space after, and I cleaned all of it up. But so just sidebar there. But yeah, so I brought them to site. These were super rudimentary. Like I said, hand soldered. They had no exposed charging connectors. They stored all the data just like inside on a micro SD card. So I would bring them to the site every morning before class, hand them all out, come back at the end of the day, grab all of them, cart them back to my dorm room, open all of them up, plug all the batteries in, dump all the SD cards to my laptop. It was a very fun several weeks. But you know what I always really try to underscore in that anecdote was the actual kind of distribution process every day. Because like I said, there was no motivation for Gilbane to help me with that. It was very much just like, do whatever you want. So, every single sensor that went out, I had a conversation with that worker about, what the sensor was doing, why they should participate, how this was respectful to their privacy and their information. And, obviously, a 19-year-old kid that has nothing to do with Gilbane on the job site, like that's already kind of an uphill conversation. And just as a fact, all 30 sensors went out every single day. And I think from day one, having that obligation to have a very trusting, open, and honest relationship with the workers actually wearing your wearables was very transformative long term. And I think still influencing how we build our ecosystem today on this, the treatment of digital transparency as bi-directional. And by that, I mean, data that comes off of our sensors is not just for the employer. It also is, it's expected to have some sort of tangible value for the workers that are actually wearing them. And I think that's the only way that you can really successfully get away with implementing wearables within the workforce.
Well, I think that what people always wonder, like, oh my God, is Big Brother watching me if I have a wearable? Now, what people don't realize is that our business, the construction industry, is the hardest working industry out there. I mean, if you look around all these amazing cities, all these amazing towns, city, roads, everything we have, we're made by amazing construction workers, and this business works very, very hard. Now, look, there's going to be some folks out there that don't want to wear the wearables, but those are usually the ones that, aren't producing much, right? They're kind of trying to hide. And I don't find that most of this business is really built by really strong working, amazing folks who are doing, who are leaps and bounds and want to show off what they do, right? They want to show off the hard work that they're doing and the amazing stuff that they're creating. And, I think that's where creating that two-way data, that communication piece, and starting with that, right? You standing there on the job site going, hey, could you wear this? And here's why, right? I think that ultimately starts your whole behavior, right? And it starts to shape the company that you're building, and it will continue to do that, right? Because you've seen them, you've looked them in the eye, and you know what they're concerned about. And you're not just in a lab doing that. You're literally there look him in the eye and going, hey, I'd like you to do this, and here's why we'd like to do that. And you're hearing back from them what their concerns are. And I think that you continue to do that throughout the history of the company. You will continue to be as successful as you are now. You're getting there, and it's amazing. So now you've got a system. You're collecting data. Now, as you start to collect this data, is there anything that you have when you're creating the data that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of, particularly coming out from the Gilbane, if you want to call it a pilot. I think that's a pretty generous term for it. But a critical understanding of activity and actual production that I wasn't expecting to get out of a wearable. I think, not just in that experience, but more and more, we've been looking for certain data sets and getting them, but then, like you said, discovering these other things, whether, it's that very early on moment with Gilbane where, I say, hey, you can actually kind of understand what people are doing through this data. We would see very distinct motion patterns across different trades. And you could start to actually understand what people were doing, where they were doing it, when they were doing it. That starts then, that continues through now, where you look at things like wellness and kind of the intensity of experience across a shift. You look at situational awareness. That was actually my senior year research project at Duke, where it was actually data from the Gilbane pilot, looked at situational awareness, which was horizontal and vertical headpans throughout the day tied to fatigue, and how that actually quantitatively reduced as workers were getting more tired. And now that's getting applied today with the joint pilot that is with a heavy machinery manufacturer, that making sure that workers who are nearby operating equipment are paying attention to it. And so it continues to tie back to this core thing of just doing, and then finding out as you go where the new value is.
Well, I think that's exactly the new value, right? What you didn't expect, I think that's one of the most amazing parts of being a creator, right? Being in that entrepreneurial space where you're creating these new ideas, this new wearable, right? And you start to look at, what you thought you were going to get is one thing, right? What really it starts to multiply it. And from there, once you start the process, once you step into it, right? People are always looking, do I have to have it all solved before I get started? No, just step. Literally, step. You have an idea, step. Take the step. And in the step, the idea gets created. And the more you think about it, when you stand there with the worker and you're talking about, hey, why we're doing this and what you're up to and the work that you're doing, in that conversation, it gets more developed. Every single night when you go home and have to open it up, download the SD card, recharge it, more information gets about how I should impact, how it should be chargeable, how it can make this ease of use so that it's easily adaptable. Every single time you download the information, you start to collect, you start to notice all of the parts of the data that you didn't even expect to, the formats or the formulas you didn't expect to see, and how there may be other opportunities that come out of that every single download, every single time you do it. And I think that's, again, another thing to really communicate is that just because you started here, don't expect that that's where you're going to end up. The path starts to wiggle a little bit, meander a little bit as more ideas get created.
I mean, it's not just finding good things either. I mean, when this pilot concluded, I put together this report that was very much inspired by my engineering lab reports, in class, and a lot of pretty graphs, very complex analytics, very detailed verbose report on it. I printed out 5 copies, brought them over to the project trailer, and started handing them out to everyone in the project office, and just people flip through and just look at me and this is not worth my time to go through this. I'm sure it's interesting, but at the end of the day, that's not how you get information to me. And so that was very transformative for me as well. And so yeah, just ties into, you have your wins, you have your losses, and then you just average them and keep moving forward.
And I think that's each different group that I have on the show, they're building a different silo part of the business, right? So now you've got one group that works on technology for bidding, right? As we look at bidding, and another group is going before that, working on design, right? They're working on technologies for design. Then you got the group that works on bidding, right? Then you get the people that would manage the job site and scheduling and communicating the schedule. Now you're working on something that's actually supporting the activity that's happening, actual activity. So really starting to dial into real scenario, not just projected, right? Not reported, but actually live data that's taking place. Here's how many people I have on site. Here's what they're doing and producing. right? And starting to look at that, and as you continue to get deeper into that portal, right? I think there's this natural thing to look over and go, what should I be doing? I think that what you're doing right now, this WorkerSense, is such a dynamic product, and understanding the actual job site construction worker and what is going on with their path of travel, how they're doing on the job site, how their health and concerns are, and having that piece that supports gathering that information. Therein lies a silo that will get exploited as the rest of this technology goes. So in your work, somewhere someone will gobble you up and bring you on to a much bigger platform. You can see that. You can see how a wearable, a group like Hilti or a big outfit out there that that's in massive amounts of construction projects really starts to look at a brand like you that's innovative, right? You're innovated, and now you can really have a big playground to play in. Right now, you get some real dollars to grow, and I think it's exciting as you talk, and I can really see where you've developed now, and that path in front of you looks pretty darn bright.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's about you mentioned bidding, you mentioned scheduling. I think at the end of the day, the success, particularly as it correlates to the construction industry, the success of all these platforms is their rooting in digital transparency. I think construction can be a very blind environment within the hierarchies on a project. And the more comfortable you are sharing information throughout that hierarchy, the more successful the delivery will be. And so when you look at WorkerSense, we're on a mission to bring this digital transparency to the $12 trillion skilled labor market. And we believe that the answers to a lot of these very complicated questions, things that relate to health and safety, relate to productivity, relate to efficiency, quality, whatever you want to categorize them as, these answers exist at the base of the pyramid. They exist in the workforce, and it's a matter of having some sort of mechanism to effectively and efficiently extract them. And for us, that vehicle right now is a wearable sensor. And what I think, is highly, highly compelling about, where we are now at the start of 2022 is it's not just this real-time project-specific management system. That brings a ton of value, don't get me wrong. The things you mentioned as far as, time and motion analysis, understanding crew dynamics, having the ability to do very precise access control in field, these things are very beneficial to the project team. But what we've also been finding is that this digital transparency can deliver value off the project on the corporate development side for our clients, where at the end of 2021, we started to enable our clients to share our data with their clients. And what we found is that digital transparency that they're starting to bake into their brand, it's netting them in some cases 3 to 5% more on their work, but then also just making them more competitive in the marketplace and winning bigger projects, winning more projects. And
I don't want to go over that too fast. Let's back up a second, because I think this is a huge conversation. I would not have expected that out of the product. So now the companies that are using your product are able to communicate to their clients, right? Their clients, the job site activities that are happening, and showing that activity.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you can describe it as digital assurance, if you will. And so there are labor providers, for instance, that we work with that use our technology to effectively manage their dispersed crews on these big projects, but then pass that data along to their client who hired them and said, hey, here's where all our people are. Here's how many we brought to the job site as expected. Here's exactly what they're doing. And it's a more transparent experience. It makes their client feel more comfortable hiring a workforce at that scale, and it helps them retain that client and want that client to hire more in the future.
I think that's exactly what I would not have expected that data to come out of there. And look, that's exactly what happens in the field. We put together these great schedules, and then we send them off to the world, and then there's this blind spot. Until someone could communicate back in a weekly report or, a couple of times a meeting, into the next meeting or the next communication tool that I get, I can't really see that well, or maybe it's the end of the day. And sometimes that's even too late, right? To be able to see that. But watching it live, what's happening, that's that there. You've taken the mystery out of the darkness on the job site.
Well, and it's not even a matter for our client's client. It's not even a matter of watching it live. Consider like package tracking. Package tracking was invented by FedEx back in, I think, like the 80s or 90s. And, that was a system that they had internally built to manage their own logistics. And someone over there said, hey, why don't we expose this to the consumer? And I don't know if I speak for everyone, but when I have something on its way to my house, I don't stare at the tracking screen all day 24/7, but you have that resource if you need to see where it is, if you want to see when it's coming. That digital assurance is very comforting and retaining. And so I think it's exciting when we look at an industry like construction, because if we are, I wouldn't say it's unilaterally across the board, we're getting people 3 to 5% more right now. I think we're headed there. We're certainly helping them win more work. It's been, I'd say, select cases where they've started to charge more, and that's worked for them. They've gotten through more conservative bids. I think in an industry like construction that is so unpredictable and so thin margin, having a little bit of financial insulation on that front is great, because I'm not naive and thinking that our platform is going to fix every single issue that comes up throughout the course of construction. There are always things that are totally out of your control, delays that are deliveries that are delayed, weather delays that are entirely unexpected. And I think us having this sort of buffer allows you to stabilize your margins in a sense and be a little bit safer and start actually making more net off of your projects.
Absolutely. The more data that we can collect, the more that we can communicate what's going on, the more that we can communicate as a group across all the environments, will certainly make for more productive job sites, more profitable job sites, happier subcontractors and employees to those subcontractors across the board. Canyon, I got to tell you, I love your entrepreneurial spirit. I think that this is what is magical about our country right now, that, there's great, innovative young people coming into the business that are just coming up with some of the brightest ideas out there. And as you continue to push those boundaries, you are today's Henry Ford, you are today's geniuses that are just really, you've got a playground like you've never had before, and the tools that you're using to exploit that are phenomenal. If people want to come to work for you, or jump on board for you, or clients are looking to take you on and become a client of yours, how do they get a hold of you?
You can go to workersense.com, or honestly, just email me personally. No issue with that. Just Canyon, CANYON, at WorkerSense, WORKERSENSE.com. Would love to have a conversation about it.
As you continue to break these breakthroughs, as you continue to push the boundaries on where these wearables can go and the interaction between them, please come back and really show them off here. I want to see them. I want to tout your success. I'm thoroughly impressed with pre-show with you and everything that we're doing. I'm grateful that you came on, and I look forward to seeing more of your innovation as you keep breaking through this industry.
Grateful for you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, brother. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony Amunategui, always looking for people to bring insight into the industry, finding ways to inspire people to have amazing careers in the development world. If you liked our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really liked our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Thanks again for listening. Please share it with your friends.